That these are preparations in many cases that we've been making for well over 2 weeks as we've all been continuing to monitor this situation. But obviously, due to increased concerns related to the coronavirus, COVID-19, there are some thoughtful actions which are required. We can accomplish two goals here at once. Of course, first and foremost, our top priority is always the health and safety of our fellow Ohioans. That's not negotiable. But what we can also do while also protecting the health and safety of Ohioans is we can run a fair and honest election next Tuesday, March 17th. We believe that as a result of the thoughtful actions that we're taking, that both of those dual goals will be accomplished. I want to thank the team from the governor's office, Governor DeWine's office, as well as Dr. Acton from the Ohio Department of Health, and all of our partners, including our 88 county boards of elections, all of you in the media, as well as our community partners that are going to help us to make sure that this happens. So there are three main points that looking to make today. First is the relocation of polling locations at senior residential facilities. Second is vote from home opportunities. And third is following best practices. So in that order. Yesterday, I ordered all 88 counties to relocate any polling locations from senior residential facilities to alternate locations. Obviously, that's a big step and it requires a lot of work, and our county boards of elections are working to do that right now as we speak. Part of the process there will be to make sure that we take every step possible to notify every affected Ohioan of the relocated polling location. We're going to be using a variety of means to do that. We're going to first also rely on you all in the press to help spread the word on that. We're going to use our social media, our website, and we're also going to work with our community partners, those voting advocacy groups that have for so long been engaged in the important work of helping Ohioans be informed voters. Folks like the League of Women Voters, and Jen's here from the League. Folks like the NAACP and the APRI, and also all the different candidates that are involved in this election. We're going to make sure that they have that information to get out to their various supporters about the relocated polling locations. Second, vote from home. Ohio has many opportunities for voters to vote from the comfort of home or through early voting. In many ways, we are way ahead of many other states throughout the country in providing a lot of those opportunities. And the good news is Ohioans are taking advantage of that already. We've seen increased numbers this year over the 2016 election cycle of the adoption and use of early voting opportunities and vote from home opportunities. A couple things to point out on there. There is still time to request your vote by mail ballot. That is done at voteohio.gov, where you can print the form and mail it to your Board of Elections. You should act quickly, though, because obviously the election is 7 days away. Mail in your absentee ballot request. Your Board of Elections will promptly mail you your ballot. It has to be postmarked by the 16th of March, which is this coming Monday, or you can drop it off at your Board of Elections or have a family member drop it off at the Board of Elections on Election Day. In that regard, I am directing all 88 county boards of elections to make curbside ballot drop-off available on Election Day. It's important to note that you cannot drop your ballot off at your regular polling location. Your ballot on Election Day can only be dropped off at the Board of Elections, where again, there will be a curbside ballot drop-off available. Should point out that for Ohioans that have not yet taken advantage of the convenience of voting by mail or voting through our early voting period, that when you vote by mail, you can track your ballot. Just like you can a package that you order online, you go to voteohio.gov and you can track your ballot to make sure that it is received by the Board of Elections. Also, as a reminder, Ohio law allows for those ballots to be received by mail. As long as they're postmarked by Monday, they can arrive up to 10 days after the election. And so that works for Ohioans that are abroad, overseas as well. Also important to point out that, again, that it has to be postmarked by the 16th. Again, early voting hours continue all this week and through this weekend. The polling locations, the early voting locations are open until 7 p.m. Through Friday this week, and they're open on Saturday and Sunday as well as Monday until 2. And so there are plenty of opportunities for both vote by mail and vote from home. The third point, following best practices. Many of these are the things that we already know what to do. washing our hands, maintaining safe distance, avoiding things like handshakes and that kind of thing during this emergency. But also, we are working with our boards of elections to make sure that they have the most up-to-date information on best practices for sanitizing voting machines and providing hand sanitizer and that kind of thing. We are working with the Ohio Department of Administrative Services as well as the emergency management agencies in the various counties to obtain supplies. If that is not possible, then we will make funding available to help defray the cost of boards of elections purchasing hand sanitizer and the sanitizing wipes necessary to follow the guidance for wiping down the voting machines. Of course, those health guidelines are meant to keep our poll workers and our voters safe so that it is a safe experience on Election Day. I want to also direct you to two websites. Of course, you're familiar with coronavirus.ohio.gov, which is an excellent website that our Ohio Department of Health has put together. Really up-to-date information from Dr. Acton and her team, and we appreciate that. We're also announcing this morning the launch of a website called voteohio.gov/coronafax. Again, voteohio.gov/coronafax. That's the official Ohio Secretary of State website for information related to the coronavirus and the preparations that we're taking to ensure a safe election experience for everyone. That voteohio.gov/coronafax will be the place where we will post the best practices available for the sanitizing of voting equipment. It'll also be the place where we post the latest information that we receive from Ohio Department of Health and CDC for how we make sure that this is a safe experience for everybody. It's also going to be the location to check for up-to-date changes on your voting location. Again, voteohio.gov/coronafax. Two additional things, in addition to the three main points that I was making, is that now is a time to watch for and be aware of and guard against disinformation. We know that foreign adversaries have used emergency situations like this as a jumping off point for their insidious disinformation efforts. These are the kind of things that, again, that we need to be alert to. And some of the basic tips for protecting against that is make sure that you're getting your information from a reliable source. Get your information from a credentialed journalist. Get your information from a .gov website. Get your information from a trusted source such as that. Of course, if you are aware of or if you see any such disinformation operations underway, please make us aware of those so that we can push back on those. And that goes to all of you in the press as well. This is a team effort for sure. The final thing that I want to mention is that we need poll workers. I would especially encourage my fellow veterans to consider it. I remember that when we took the oath of enlistment, it said that we were promising to preserve and protect the Constitution and to defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that's a lifetime commitment. So whether you yourself are a veteran or just a patriotic Ohioan who wants to do your part during this time, consider signing up to be a poll worker. There's still time to get the training needed. Our boards of elections would be happy to have you. You'll get paid for it. But most importantly, it's an opportunity to help make sure that we have a secure and honest election for all Ohioans this coming Tuesday. Additionally, we're asking state employees to consider it, and we've got an email that we're sending out to state employees to consider taking the day off on Tuesday to be a poll worker. Again, we need people to take up this cause, and you'll find it a rewarding experience. You'll learn a lot. You'll learn a lot about your own democracy in Ohio and how it functions, and you'll be doing your duty to help make sure that we have a secure election. The place to visit to sign up to be a poll worker is ohiosos.gov/defenddemocracy. ohiosos.gov/defenddemocracy. That name was chosen very purposefully, because if you sign up to be a poll worker, you will be helping us defend democracy, and I hope that you seriously consider that. Again, to reiterate, the three main points that I'm making today are the relocation of polling locations from senior living facilities to alternative locations, taking advantage of vote from home and vote early opportunities, and following best practices. And finally, watching for disinformation and considering signing up to be a poll worker. Just so that Ohioans understand the scope of Election Day, there are over 35,000 of our fellow Ohioans out working the polls that day. Think about what a large mobilization of our fellow Ohioans that is. 35,000 that are out working the polls, doing this important, by the way, bipartisan teams. in a time where it feels like Republicans and Democrats can't agree what day of the week it is. At every polling location throughout the state, you've got Republicans and Democrats working together to do this very important task. Those locations are 3,658 locations. Think about that, 3,658 polling locations throughout the state. So it's a big undertaking. We are ready for it. We will be ready for it. It's because of the patriotism and the dedication of our county boards of elections, our poll workers, and our team at the Ohio Secretary of State's office. Next up, proud to welcome back to this lectern somebody who's been here quite a few times recently, our friend Dr. Amy Acton, who is doing an able job as the director of the Ohio Department of Health. Dr. Acton.
Good morning, everyone. I do apologize. I know you're seeing a lot of me lately, but I really want to take this moment to thank the Secretary of State and his team. I think what they've done in making some of these adjustments to protect our most vulnerable citizens is really important, especially the elderly in residential settings. And I think these sorts of actions, the first of which we'll be seeing many, throughout the state of Ohio in the days to come, really are the things that will help save lives. But I want to tell you, my team has worked tirelessly to make sure voting is safe. It's so important we vote. This is a time of really an unprecedented disruption to our society, and we're going to see that evolve as we have seen in Italy, and we're seeing in Washington State and all around this country. But this is a time where we can all also pull together and do the kinds of things like help out, be someone who works at the polls if you're healthy. And so we're going to make sure that those polling places are safe for you. Definitely if you're in one of the more high-risk categories we've talked about, the elderly, people with pre-existing health conditions, whether it be diabetes, heart disease, lung disease, those folks, try to vote early if you can. We don't know how the situation will change over the days to come, so take advantage of that. I think that's a really great way to participate. And again, we do have lots of tips on our website, coronavirus.ohio.gov. We do have our hotline open right now if you have questions, about your own situation. And again, that number is 833-4-ASK-ODH. And again, we'll have people available to talk you through what might be best for your personal situation. This is a civic duty, and if there's anything we can do right now, this is no politics. All that has to fall aside as we go through these next weeks together. And I just really commend the Secretary of State. He's been working tirelessly to make sure we have this right to exercise our vote. So please take advantage of his voteohio.gov and learn what you can do. Thank you.
Well, good morning. My name is Ed Leonard. I'm the director of the Franklin County Board of Elections, and we're just here to give a little bit of the local perspective. We've been seeing at the Board of Elections what Dr. Atkin and as well as Secretary of State LaRose, and we've been working with the Secretary of State's office because we saw that this was a need that needed to be addressed, a decision that we needed to make in order to relocate polling locations to outside of the nursing facilities and residential assisted living facilities. We're moving 16 locations in Franklin County that are to existing locations. By moving them to existing locations, that'll facilitate a more orderly movement of those locations. We've begun all the logistical steps to undertake that more orderly move. We have approximately 21,000 voters that are being affected by this relocation of polling locations from our nursing and assisted living facilities. We will be mailing each of those voters postcard notice of all of the to all of those affected voters, letting them know what their new polling location is. At each of the locations, we are going to have materials available. We will have signage directing folks to the new locations. We will have staff at each of those locations directing voters to those new locations. We've confirmed with all of those new locations. We'll be on our website. We will have information on our website, which can be reached through the Ohio Secretary of State's website. And we've been preparing all of our 330 locations throughout Franklin County to be prepared for Election Day and taking precautionary measures to be prepared. We have secured some supplies, and we're continuing to secure supplies that the poll workers will be able to use, again, to make sure that the voting machines are kept clean, that we have hand sanitizer available. We've been working with our local Board of Health to have materials reminding both voters as well as precinct election officials about some of those common sense good hygiene practices to ensure that, again, the voting locations are a safe place to attend to that business. Again, we always need poll workers. As the Secretary was mentioning, we always need folks to work the polls with us, and so we encourage folks to go to ohiosos.gov, defend democracy, and sign on to be a poll worker. We are taking those steps, and we want to emphasize the fact that we are taking steps to ensure that, again, that we keep that risk low and that we provide a environment for people to exercise their right to vote. Again, just want to remind voters that by exercising common sense hygiene precautions, that as they go to the polls, that they can feel confident and safe in casting their vote on Election Day. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Commissioner in Franklin County, Commissioner of Public Health, Joe Mazzola.
Thank you, Director Leonard and Secretary of State LaRose and Dr. Acton. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be here this morning. I just want to kind of just reiterate really everything that's been said this morning. From our local health department perspective, we really appreciate the opportunity to partner with our Board of Elections to make sure that we're taking all the necessary precautions for a safe Election Day next Tuesday. And we think that we have put in place those measures and those best practices. This conversation started early with our Board of Elections, and I want to just commend the Director of our Board of Elections for having those discussions with us. These are the opportunities that we really need to make sure that we're taking advantage of and having that good open dialogue and communication so we can keep our residents safe. And so we are, I think, are putting all the right precautions that are necessary, not just for our voters, but again, I want to emphasize our poll workers, that it is safe for our poll workers to come out on Tuesday and be such an important part of the voting process. And obviously, we wouldn't be able to do that without them. And so we really look forward to making sure that they feel comfortable, and we're putting all the right resources and precautions in place at the local level. So as a health commissioner here in Franklin County, I, of course, have 112 colleagues around the state at local health departments, and we'll be reaching out to all of them to make sure that they are connecting with their Board of Elections at a local level as well. And so it's all about communication, and I really appreciate those comments about making sure that folks have the best information so that they can make the best decisions for them. And so they have lots of options to vote, which is great. We want to make sure that we continue that dialogue at the state level, but then also at the community level. And so that's where local health departments will be working very collaboratively with our Board of Elections to continue over the next several days to make sure that we're getting that right information out to our communities. And so again, our poll workers and of course our residents feel comfortable moving into Election Day next Tuesday. So very important. This is a great partnership that we've been able to foster over the last couple of days, and we're looking forward to making sure that we have a safe and healthy Election Day next Tuesday, and look forward to making sure that we have that information out there for our residents. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mazzola. And I think we know that Ohio has a heritage of leading when it comes to elections. And what you're seeing here is a very proactive response from the leaders of our state to make sure that we continue to be a leader in elections. We know that when Ohio holds an election that the world is watching, and next Tuesday we're going to have an election in Ohio that's going to be safe for everyone involved, and the voice of every Ohioan will be heard. Again, the three things that I want to reiterate: relocating all polling locations that were previously held at senior residential facilities, and that Ohioans should take advantage of voting from home and voting early. All that information is at voteohio.gov, and then that we are directing our boards of elections to, of course, follow those best practices as it relates to hygiene and sanitation at our polling locations. One other thing that I want to point out, and that is that we have asked our boards of elections to give us the numbers. We've gotten those numbers from all but 2 counties, and so where we are right now is the total number of polling locations that are currently at residential senior facilities and that are being moved is 125. That number will grow by a few as we hear from these last 2 counties, but that's the range that we're in, and I just wanted to make sure that I was keeping you all up to date on the latest information that we have. And so with that, look forward to the questions that you all have. Yeah.
Secretary about the valuable role of the press in all this, and we're seeing the president downplay this crisis as well as talking about fake news on Twitter. Any concern there, any plan to address that?
Well, the president speaks for himself, and I speak for the Ohio Secretary of State's office, and each of these professionals speak for their agencies. So I'm not going to speculate on what the president has to say, other than to say that here in Ohio, we're taking this very seriously. This is a serious matter. This is a public health emergency, as the governor declared yesterday. But it also doesn't mean that we can't run a fair and honest election on Tuesday. And so we're going to be able to accomplish both of those goals by being proactive. But this is about facts, not fear, right? These are the kind of situations that tend to breed rumors, even intentional disinformation by foreign adversaries and others. And so we're going to be pushing back if those kind of things do start to pop up, because what the people of Ohio deserve to know is that, what the dangers are, what the threat profile is here, and also that they have an opportunity to vote and make sure their voice is heard next Tuesday. We can accomplish both.
Secretary,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
what about schools?
Yeah.
Is any consideration being given to moving polling places that are in schools right now?
So that would be impractical, simply because such a large number of our polling locations are at schools. We rely heavily on schools as polling locations for obvious reasons. They have the parking, they have the ADA accessibility, they are government buildings that can accommodate the demands of Election Day. I will say that what we're seeing right now, and I'll let the professionals speak to this, is that the threat increases with age, and so the population that we're most concerned about is our seniors. That's why we relocated those polling locations out of senior residential facilities. But that if there is a concern at the local level, that schools should consider not having instruction that day. But we will continue to use those schools as polling locations, because it's just not feasible to move them. And so that's a local decision for them to make. There are a variety of different scenarios. Where my voting location is in Summit County, it's at a school, but it is in a separate building across the parking lot where the athletic teams train. And so it's not even connected to the building where students are. So those are decisions that are best made at the local level. I trust that our school officials will do what's in the best interest of their students, but we will continue to use schools for polling locations. Yes, sir, in the back.
I have a question for Dr. Agnew. Yesterday, Ohio State University will not have face-to-face classrooms. Because of education in the classrooms will be instead. Do you recommend that statewide for all universities? And what about public schools as well?
So I think as we see this situation evolve, we're going to see first most higher ed taking a look at this, just like we're seeing businesses and even K through 12. They're very busy right now looking at their policies for online education. As the situation evolves, and as it is daily, I think we'll see a shift in our society of folks. If you are in a non-essential situation, when there is at all a possibility where you can voluntarily keep going but do so without being out in public, you'll see that begin to ramp up. And I do know the universities will be talking more based on OSU's decision. I think the universities are all talking probably as we speak. So I think schools themselves are very important to look at as well, and they're looking at their online capabilities. I was a university professor. I know, I could manage my class online if need be, and that's how OSU has approached it. Our schools are very important. We know that young people are less at risk of this right now, so I think you will see that later in the process than you will see earlier, like the universities.
So your recommendation is what at this point?
The governor and I will be out giving more guidance, and we'll be giving guidance as the week goes. So right now, I think at local situations, in localities, for instance, if we end up having an outbreak in a given area, you might see that locality move sooner than, say, a whole state would. But I think you'll see this evolve, and we'll take it case by case. And that's the nature of this, and a pandemic, is that we'll be taking it as it comes. But I think you'll see our governor lean in more and do things earlier, because the earlier you do this, the earlier we slow that spread. Every one of us who's not out spreading something keeps 3 other people from getting it. And so you really can save lives. And I think as a citizenry, we're slowly getting that in our heads. It takes a while to come to that. Even me, I had a vacation scheduled a week from now. And, as I make decisions, I was going to visit, our elderly in-laws. We're not exposing them to us. These are the decisions each and every one of us will be making.
I do want to point out that I think we all know that Governor DeWine has been proactive about this from the very beginning, and he will be, I've told from his team that he will be back at this lectern at 2 p.m. this afternoon for an additional update, and I assume that Dr. Acton's team will be there as well. So we'll try to keep the questions this morning to the specifics of Election Day questions. Andrew?
So you're talking about looking for more poll workers, consolidating locations, directing people to vote early who may not have been expecting to. Are you concerned there will be long lines on Election Day? Have you considered making any extra steps like extending hours or somehow expediting the process to try to accommodate for that?
So long lines are always a concern. I think that we have been very proactive in Ohio with providing over 200 hours of early voting as a way to help mitigate that. We've been proactive in Ohio with funding for every county electronic poll books. We've been proactive about funding $114.5 million for the newest most state-of-the-art and secure voting equipment so that process can move smoothly. Our polling locations are very efficient operations at this point, and I think that we'll be able to work through that. We try to mitigate lines, but I will say that there's no plan in place right now to extend early voting or to extend rather Election Day voting, and we believe that'll be sufficient. I do want to mention that you asked a question about our friends in the press and the responsibility for helping to disseminate this information. Our thoughts are with the families that work at the Plain Dealer, by the way, that are impacted by what's going on there, and it's just another sign that all of us are doing more with less right now. And so I appreciate those of you in the press helping us get the word out on this. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned poll workers. It's always an issue to find poll workers for Election Day. There's been reports in our states of poll workers dropping out or not showing up at the last minute because of concerns. What's your plan for that?
Well, we have directed the boards of elections to start communicating with their poll workers. First, it's important for poll workers to understand that it will be a safe environment on Election Day. It is safe to be a poll worker. We want Ohioans that are longtime poll workers to continue to be a poll worker. And again, the steps that we're taking are meant to make sure that it's a safe experience for both our poll workers and our voters. With that, the reality is we expect that some may choose not to work the polls on Election Day. And so we are trying to recruit new poll workers and trying to make sure that we create a new opportunity for Ohioans to join, hopefully what becomes a tradition for them to be a poll worker. Again, we've asked our state agencies to send an email to their staff offering the opportunity to be a poll worker, and we're reminding Ohioans that ohiosos.gov/defenddemocracy is the place to sign up, and there's still time to get trained for that.
Are you concerned that this will be able to turn out at all?
I hope not. Again, that's why we're being proactive about this. We're being proactive about this to make sure that Ohioans know that we can, again, protect the health and safety of Ohioans and also have a free and fair election on Tuesday, March 17th. Yes, sir.
Somebody Ed mentioned that he's going to be mailing individual voters wherever the polling places are. Is there a map or a list that we can put on our websites about where all new polling locations will be in case someone is out of town?
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can go to find out exactly where all?
So the most up-to-date information on that will be at the Ohio Secretary of State's office, which is Ohio Secretary of State website, voteohio.gov/coronafax. And that's the spot that we're directing everybody, voteohio.gov/coronafax. In addition, as we get the comprehensive list of relocated polling locations, we intend to be pushing those out because, again, I think that with all of us working to spread that news, that we can make sure that Ohioans are aware of their relocated polling location. Go ahead.
This one's for Ed. Ed, can you talk about logistical challenges that moving locations, 125 at least, can provide boards of elections and what struggles they may face, especially in perhaps smaller counties with less funding or options?
Well, one of the things we started to do as soon as we made the decision, and before we made the final decision, was to look at all those logistical requirements that would be made. And really they include, we're changing in the hauling and loading of our equipment to polling locations, so all that voting equipment. We've had some that were actually delivered that need to be retrieved from those locations to be redelivered, redistributed, communicating to our poll workers, which we're continuing to maintain communication with our poll workers because now their voting location, where they were planning to show up on election day, has changed, so making sure they know that. Obviously notifying voters, the postcard or by envelope, mailing. So again, voters should, from every Board of Elections, voters should be on the lookout for that mailing that they're going to be getting. So, because I know sometimes people may not check their mail as thoroughly or consider it junk mail, but they need to be paying close attention to that mailing that's going to be coming in their mailbox. Coordinating with the nursing facilities to let them know that that we're not going to be there, and then coordinating with the nursing facilities, because many of these locations, those residents expected that they were going to vote on election day, that they were just going to walk down to the community space in their facility and they were going to cast their vote. Well, now we're taking the steps to make sure that that is done. We're working, we've got a schedule of going out to the polling locations for the application process, then preparing the ballots, delivering the ballots, and picking up the ballots. So we're working with the nursing home facilities to make sure that that takes place. And then updating websites, updating our automated phone system to make sure that the information's there, essentially making sure that every space on our website has got the correct information, working with our data center to facilitate that, media communications, because again, we want to, and I know that was part of the Secretary of State's directive, is that each of the counties work with their local media to undertake that communication. So again, that we take advantage of as many avenues as possible to get that information to the electorate, to make sure that they're aware of it. And again, what we want to encourage is people to verify their polling location. Voters should do that before every election, is to go to the trusted websites, either the local Board of Elections or the Secretary of State site, and find out where to vote, because they should always do that. And so encouraging voters to do that, and taking advantage of our relationship with local media to do that.
Follow up for the Secretary. Having all of that been said, that's Franklin County, that's one of the largest counties, some of the most number of voters. You've got counties out there that don't have those kinds of resources in 7 days to do all of this same.
Yeah.
Is there anything the Secretary of State's office can do to help those smaller counties? You have to reach out and motivate a few to get some security things done.
Yeah. This is a partnership. It always has been. Elections are run at the county level in partnership with the state of Ohio. And so we'll continue partnering with our county boards of elections of all shapes and sizes, because as you know, our boards of elections really reflect the great diversity of Ohio. And so they look different. If you've been to one board of elections, you've been to one board of elections, right? They all look a little bit different from one another. And so the good news is we're being proactive about this. They have 7 days to make these changes. We'll work with them. Some of the things that we're doing is providing guidance on notification. For example, we want them to post the notification certainly on the door, but we want them to go further than that, the door of the previous location. One of the suggestions that we have is that those previous voting locations that are now being relocated make a map available. Just print off a bunch of sheets of paper to pass out to people that do show up there thinking that's still their voting location, so they can just see a simple map how to get to their new location. Working with the press, working with local press, and using our own social media, we'll spread the word and we'll work through this. Yes, sir.
It's been clear for some time now that the coronavirus was going to appear in Ohio. Why wait until 7 days before an election to move this many polls?
Sure. I think that with a lot of these things, we don't want to overreact. We want to react smartly. And we made the decision in the right timing that the changes can get made. There are other states that are holding their elections today that just a few days ago had to react very quickly to change polling locations. We provided effectively 8 days notice, because yesterday I put out the order to all 88 boards of elections to start making these preparations. They'll have to move fast, but there is time. And again, one of the things that we have that many other states don't is 200 plus hours of early voting, Sunday voting, Saturday voting, no fault absentee. So every Ohioan who wants to cast their ballot should consider requesting their absentee ballot right now. Start a new habit. I was talking to my in-laws just about this just the other day. They've never voted by mail. I said, now's the time to try it. Why don't you check out voteohio.gov, print your absentee ballot, mail it in, and you can track it. Again, just like you track a package that you order online, you can track your absentee ballot to make sure it's received at the Board of Elections. And to make something clear, on election night, and Ed will back this up, those first ballots that are counted are those absentee and vote by mail ballots. There's always these rumors that go around that they don't count absentee ballots unless it's close or whatever else. That's not true, never has been true. At 7:30, the first ballots they count are those vote by mail and absentee ballots. So Ohioans want to make their vote the first one counted, they should vote by mail and vote absentee. Go ahead.
Secretary LaRose, how many of your poll workers have indicated that they're going to be dropping out?
Don't have an exact number for that, but I would say, again, I don't have a ballpark for that. We reinforce that it will be safe for poll workers to work, but the responsible thing to do, this is no different than any of us in our workforce, the responsible thing to do is if you don't plan to attend Election Day, you need to notify your Board of Elections right now. A no-call, no-show is not acceptable, right? But again, we reiterate that it is safe and our poll workers should still be there on Tuesday as planned. Yes, sir.
Follow-up.
Go ahead.
Dr. Acton. You know, a lot of the poll workers tend to be older. Some of them are well above 60. Should some of them consider dropping out?
I definitely think some of the older, of course, the people who do all the heavy lifting for us are the elderly. And so I think if they have any questions about that, talk to your provider now. I think the earlier the better, as you said. And I really love this call out to the rest of us, meaning me and my colleagues and all of us, the folks that can carry this load. This is another one of those things we can do to help in this very trying time. So everyone else, if you can do this, maybe now's the time to try it. I think that's a great advice.
Something that, hold on just a second, something that Ed just mentioned that we should reiterate is that, and this has always been the case in Ohio, if you're in line by 7:30 on election night, you will vote. Doesn't matter how long the line is, if you're patient, and we anticipate that there won't be lines, and we're going to work hard to make sure that there aren't, but if you're in line by 7:30 on election night, you can in fact vote. And Ed also mentioned that as they've been in contact with their poll workers, as with anything like this, there's some initial concern. But as they talk to their poll workers and explain the best practices that we're taking for sanitation, best practices that we're taking for hand washing and everything else, the poll workers are reassured. Other questions? Yes, sir.
One more question. You mentioned 125 polling locations. Do you know about how many others that are affected?
So that's not a number that I can calculate right now off the top of my head because that's 125 locations, not precincts, right? So some of those may be one precinct voting at a location. Some of those may be 4 precincts or 5 precincts voting at a location. So that's not a number that I have available, but what we do know is that as of the most recent number that I have, again, there's 2 counties that still have to get back to us. There's 125 senior residential facilities that are being relocated. I think that was our last question. Thanks so much, everybody.